Okay, so I want to share some experiences I had from Jaffna. So it is not intended as a report. Basically, it's just things I saw for myself, I heard for myself, and what I feel and think about what I saw and heard. So the first strong experience is that when you try to go, it's so difficult to go to Jaffna. The flight is 1 hour, but the procedure makes it anything between 6 to 9 hours. The last time I came, it took me 9 hours from the time it reported, and the facilities are really bad. Particularly for me, it was a little bit easier, but for people who are older, for people with young infants, it's extremely difficult to travel because you got to change buses about 5-6 times throughout the journey till you reach Jaffna properly, or from Jaffna to Colombo. And then the waiting areas doesn't have much facilities, but at the same time the price is really expensive to go by plane. It's costs 18,000 rupees up and down, which is much more expensive than going to India or going to Bangkok, for example. The second thing that strikes me is that there is a lot of restrictions placed on people traveling between Jaffna and Colombo and rest of the world. So to me, I feel that this is a deliberate attempt to isolate Jaffna and in a way create a separate state or something equal to that. For Sri Lankan citizens who live in Jaffna, who are residents in Jaffna, they have to get a special visa to come to Colombo. So it's not called a visa, it's called permission issued by the military, but it is in fact a visa. One person I met on the flight who had gone to Italy for a conference, he is in the Jaffna University, told me it took him about 3 weeks to get his Colombo visa as a Jaffna resident, and it took him about a few days to get his Italian visa as a Sri Lankan citizen from the Italian embassy in Colombo. And that shows the difficulty for people to get a visa or permission to come to Colombo, even though it's one country. But that doesn't apply to Sri Lankans from other parts of the country, like me going from Colombo to Jaffna. I can get a visa on arrival, but I had to give information. I am interviewed by the military, and then they ask a lot of questions, they photograph us, and then they finally give a pass, which can be considered the visa to stay in Jaffna for someone who is not resident in Jaffna. And it's the same for expatriates. And people like to have more expatriate people, particularly working in NGOs doing humanitarian work, because they need the assistance, because the government doesn't provide assistance to many people, like the displaced people and who lost their homes. And also for security purposes, because people get a sense of security when there are expatriates. There's an extremely high level of fear. There is killings, disappearances, abductions every day, and sometimes it's 2-3 per day. And a lot of people actually surrender to the Human Rights Commission and stay in prison like caged animals just because they fear for their lives and they don't have any place to hide, and it's extremely difficult to run away from Jaffna. And there's a curfew imposed by the government at 9 o'clock, but people have a self-imposed curfew after around 6:37. And when I went around a little bit at that time, I couldn't see any cycle, any vehicle, or not any people walking around after 7 o'clock. Prices in Jaffna of goods for food items and other basic essentials like fuel, batteries are extremely high. And I think this has to be taken in a context where people can't engage in their day-to-day livelihoods in Jaffna and do their ordinary jobs. For example, shops close by around 5-6 o'clock because people don't walk around on the streets, as I said before, out of fear. And many people's farmland has been taken over by the military for many years, so they can't actually engage in agriculture. And I met one person at least who had 15 acres of paddy land taken over by the military. And the problem is that there is no alternative land offered and no compensation offered. Now, many of them don't contest the fact that for security reasons, the government can take land in a way, but they feel that they have to be told and consulted. And there's a total crackdown on media. There's hardly any independent media going from Colombo and outside the country to Jaffna to report. It's very difficult for them to go. And so all the people I met actually have stories of sadness and to share with me, either loss of people, family members through killings and disappearances, or loss of property. So Jaffna, I feel, is a totally different world, and many people in Sri Lanka and outside the world don't know.
Great.
Okay.